Brothers Vlad and Radu, sons of the Wallachian voivode Vlad II Dracul, grew up in the Ottoman court as princely hostages, educated in the same Muslim spirit as their friend young Mehmed II, the future Ottoman Sultan. As he matured, Vlad served with distinction with the elite Janissaries and was praised for his soldierly qualities, but his roughness and fearless resistance to becoming a Muslim made him subject to brutal punishments. Vlad hasn't forgotten this, even years after he deserted the Ottoman court to join the Hungarian ranks. I'm fortunate to have found a line of work that I love, but far too many people work jobs that they hate. Still, you can always turn things around. If you're looking for a fulfilling career that makes a difference in the world, I strongly recommend checking out 80,000 Hours, the sponsor of this video. What they offer is completely free. 80,000 Hours is a non-profit that provides free advice to help people find a fulfilling career and tackle the world's important and pressing problems. 80,000 hours is the typical amount of time a person spends working during their lifetime. 40 hours per week, 50 weeks per year, for 40 years. That is a lot of time. This means that your career is a major driver of your happiness, but also probably your biggest opportunity to impact the world positively. The non-profit has conducted over 10 years of research alongside academics at Oxford University into how to find a fulfilling career that does a lot of good. 3 things I like about all this. It's based on verifiable research, it aims to bring a positive impact globally, and it's totally free. Go to 80,000hours.org/historymarsh and get an in-depth copy of their career guide. Next, make a plan based on everything you've learned and put it into action. You've got nothing to lose by signing up. It's free, so you can help support my channel by signing up at 80,000hours.org for research, advice, and resources that could be life-changing. Wishing to dominate the last increment of the Danube River, the crescent of Islam clashes with the cross of Christianity at Belgrade in July of 1456. Led by Sultan Mehmed II, the Ottomans are defeated and forced to make a humiliating retreat. But after years of conflict, the Hungarian army also suffers great losses in men and materials, and creates a window of opportunity for young Vlad. Placed in charge of protecting the Transylvanian border, Vlad uses his position to exploit the military power vacuum left by the decimated armies and marches into Wallachia ahead of a small mercenary force, but is soon opposed by the incumbent Vladislav II near Targsor. The two leaders choose to decide the battle with a knightly duel, and amidst cheers from the two armies, Vlad wins the duel and kills Vladislav. Then proceeds to march unopposed to the Wallachian capital of Targoviste. There he crowns himself as voivode of Wallachia in August 1456. His divine right to the throne confirmed the following night by a spectacular comet in the night sky. Wasting no time, Vlad hires his own uniformed mercenary army and moves to consolidate his power and reform the country. He enforces taxes on the boyars, much to their dismay. Furthermore, he eliminates those plotting to kill him and even goes after powerful boyars responsible for the killing of his father and brother. Their estates are confiscated and given to the peasants, who, in exchange, are to be trained during post-harvest months for military service. Vlad rids Wallachia of people who pollute the land. Thieves are impaled, beggars homeless and the plague-infested are burned alive in barns. In Vlad's opinion, they depart earthly sufferings for a better afterlife. He further centralizes his realm by building fortresses and churches and expands the capital of Targoviste and other cities. He also creates a princely order by naming best soldiers vitez, meaning brave. These knights become the new nobility who support only Vlad. He undertakes road construction to enhance domestic and international trade revenue, gives subsidies to handymen to open their businesses, and encourages the middle class with tax enhancements. Installs customs posts at the borders, forcing foreign merchants to pay taxes when traveling through or doing business in Wallachia. For all intents and purposes, Vlad rules his realm with confidence and an iron fist, and he soon goes after his rivals. By 1458, Vlad's Wallachian army begins raiding Saxon-dominated Transylvania, bringing carnage to communities which shelter many of Vlad's rivals to the crown. He orders suspected traitors to be impaled in full view of the residents, and attempts to burn the monumental Black Church of Brasov. He also regains possession of Bran Castle, once owned by his grandfather. Needless to say, by 1460 the Saxon establishment in Transylvania is furious, but their bitter complaints about Vlad's cruelty fall on deaf ears of King Matthias. The unhappy merchants seek their own justice by deciding to eliminate the Wallachian voivode and replace him with Dan III, one of the men behind the murder of Vlad's father and brother. But it soon proves to be a doomed venture, as Vlad gets word of their operation and ambushes their army. Again rising to the occasion, Vlad humiliates Dan III in a spectacular duel, then forces him to dig his own grave in full view of his men, before he is decapitated and his followers impaled. Further raids into duchies which refused Vlad's rule lead to the massacre of tens of thousands of civilians, and by now the greatly displeased King Matthias realizes that his Transylvanian province is threatened. An agreement is reached with Vlad. The Saxons agree to return all of Vlad's rivals and dissidents, pay 15,500 forints and supply soldiers. In exchange, Vlad promises to stop the Ottomans from entering Transylvania. With most of his rivals dead and his northwestern border secured, the Wallachian voivode projects his power further by building a new Wallachian capital closer to the Danube. Located in the marshes of the Dâmbovița River, Bucharest is surrounded by natural moats infested with leeches, snakes, and mosquitoes, good natural deterrents for any invading army. From his new capital, Vlad hopes to unite all Vlahs into one kingdom, and, confident of his power, he provides military aid to Prince Stefan, who is attempting to take the throne of Moldavia, dutifully keeping the oath of loyalty he had given to his cousin. In response to Vlad's collaboration with Stefan, an Ottoman force embarks on a campaign of pillage and destruction in southern Wallachia. After their fast raid, the Ottoman retreat is slowed by the plunder and prisoners. Before they can reach the Danube, the Ottomans are intercepted by Vlad's cavalry. Only a few Turks live to cross the Danube and tell the tale. Considering the Ottoman raid to be a violation of the treaty he has with Sultan Mehmed, Vlad refuses to pay yearly tribute and to pledge vassalage. Now he faces the mighty Ottoman army, but he hopes that the crusade called by Pope Pius against the Ottomans will relieve some of the pressure on Wallachia. But with European kingdoms embroiled in intrigue and warfare against each other, hardly anyone commits to the Christian cause, and by 1461, the Pope's call for a crusade rings hollow. Left to face the Ottomans alone, Vlad agrees to pay tribute and to send young boys to be trained as janissaries. Around this time, one of Vlad's most trusted and valuable allies, Michael Szilágyi, is captured in Bulgaria by the Ottomans. Considered to be a spy, he is brought to Constantinople, where he is tortured and eventually sawed in half. Soon after, a 10,000-strong Ottoman contingent enters Wallachia to collect the tribute and the new recruits, led by the commander of Nicopolis, Hamza Pasha. Seeing the large force, Vlad suspects that Hamza's real mission is to capture him. The Wallachian voivode reacts and attacks the approaching Ottoman contingent with full force, annihilating them down to a man. He impales thousands of dead Turks around Targoviste and sends Hamza's head in a jar to King Matei as proof of the Wallachian commitment to fight the Ottomans. But despite this, he receives no reply and no help from the Hungarian king. Vlad spends the rest of 1461 training his army for war and fortifies Bucharest with heavy palisades and brick bastions, installing cannons along the fortification perimeter. Aware that Mehmed's armies are fighting in Anatolia, Vlad prepares to raid Ottoman territory. And in early 1462, while en route to cross the frozen Danube, Wallachian cavalry stops not far from Gheorghe, one of the strongest heavily fortified northern Ottoman military bases. Dressed as a high-ranking Ottoman official ahead of his entourage, Vlad approaches the fortress on a snowy day and, speaking in perfect Turkish, orders the garrison commander to open the gates. The sentries let him in, believing he must be an important official, as he is traveling with many bodyguards. Upon entering, Vlad's men silence the sentries and open the gates wide for the rest of the Wallachian cavalry to rush in and take over the fortress. They slaughter the Ottoman garrison and set their quarters ablaze after looting them. What followed next would fuel the legend of Vlad the Impaler. Over the next 2 weeks, his cavalrymen engage in raids that cover 800 kilometers, 500 miles, along the frozen Danube, all the way to the Black Sea. Aiming to destroy main bridgeheads that the Ottomans used to cross into Wallachia, Vlad's army sacks Ottoman and other non-Christian settlements on the Bulgarian Danube riverbank, and continue to raid south into Ottoman territory over the next few months. For the Vlahas living in Bulgaria since Dacian times, these are blessed days. At least for a time, they regained their freedom from the Ottoman yoke. Countless numbers of them join the fight, either seeking revenge or because they believe in Vlad's mission. The news spreads like wildfire about the carnage left in the wake of Vlad's mini-crusade. The Wallachian voivode now hopes that more Christians will rally to his banner to fight off the mighty Ottomans. Word spreads across the Balkans and beyond about the effectiveness of Vlad Tzepesh's raid into Ottoman territory. Using his knowledge of the empire's military organization, something he learned during his time in the Ottoman court, Vlad selectively targets vital Ottoman military infrastructure in northern Bulgaria, crippling their capability to quickly respond to Wallachian attacks. He destroys crossing points into Wallachia, sacks those fortified cities that serve as bases, pillages and burns key towns that have military duties and store agricultural supplies, as well as other provisions for the Ottoman army. Economic damage and chaos spread far and wide, as countless thousands of civilians perish at the hands of Vlad's horsemen. But now, more Turks are coming. Mehmed II recently concluded a highly successful campaign against an anti-Ottoman alliance in Anatolia, extending his rule on the peninsula and achieving the ultimate goal of his campaign by conquering Trebizond, the last of the Byzantine Greek cities. Back at his palace while tending to the administration of the empire, news reaches Mehmed about the carnage caused by Vlad Tzepesh. In Bulgaria, large groups of the Turkish population are fleeing south, bringing with them tales that the Impaler prince is on his way to Constantinople. Mehmed decides to take matters into his own hands, not least because the spreading of such rumors could turn Vlad into an undisputed hero of the entire region and destabilize Ottoman rule in the Balkans. The Sultan becomes even more concerned after reports reach Constantinople that King Matthias Corvinus sent the experienced Sakeli-mounted troops in support of Vlad's war effort. If these reports are true, this would mean that an alliance between Matthias and Vlad may have been formed against the Ottomans. Mehmed further suspects that an even broader Christian alliance might be planning a crusade against the Ottoman Empire, as Hungary increases their military presence in Belgrade, and the Pope sends vast sums of money to King Matthias. In return, the king offers Hungary to be the host of the Western armies and promises to provide troops for the Christian cause. The Hungarian king would eventually break these promises. Despite not knowing Matthias's real intentions, Mehmed nevertheless diligently acts on the reports he received and begins preparations for a major conflict. Some contemporary sources place the number of Ottoman troops in the hundreds of thousands, which are highly exaggerated and unrealistic figures. For the purpose of this video, we will use the accounts of the 15th century Venetian envoy in Buda, Pietro di Tomasi, who writes that Mehmed mobilized a 60,000-strong army, though modern research tells us that the number of troops was far lower. Mehmed assembles such a large army, expecting that in Wallachia he will be fighting against the joined armies of Matthias and Vlad, which also requires the Sultan to lead his troops in person. But there are further factors which require Mehmed's presence in Wallachia. Vlad proved to be a formidable foe, employing effective military targets, logistical know-how, as well as diplomatic trickery to devastate northern Bulgaria and eliminate a number of Ottoman army contingents and garrisons. Mehmed has to take revenge against Vlad and reaffirm his image as protector of Ottoman lands. Furthermore, a demonstration of Ottoman power near the Hungarian border might discourage his biggest rival in the region from joining the planned crusade, and the destruction of Vlad's army would eliminate the only Christian country from the planned crusade that took action against the Ottoman Empire. Across the Danube, Vlad Tepes calls upon all able-bodied men to join the fight. The core of his army is comprised of around 2,000 experienced troops, his personal guard, foreign mercenaries and the Sakeli horsemen. The boyars, with their mercenaries and vassals, are able to field around 8,000 troops. The remaining 10,000 are formed by soldiers under local leaders of smaller landholdings. In total, Vlad assembles around 20,000 troops, though here too, modern research tells us that the number of troops was far lower. Believing that King Matthias will keep his promise and will come to his aid, Vlad continues his aggression against the Ottomans by destroying their military and merchant shipping on the Danube, expecting help to arrive no later than April before the ice on the Danube completely melts, which will allow the Ottoman fleet to sail up the river from the Black Sea. But April comes and goes, and Vlad realizes he must adapt his plans. The Ottoman army leaves Edirne in late April or early May. Mehmed plans to march west along the Via Militaris to Plovdiv, and then north to Nicopolis, using army storehouses along the way to stockpile provisions for the campaign, knowing that he might not be able to effectively supply his army once he reaches the devastated areas in northern Bulgaria. Once at Nicopolis, from there he plans to follow a commercial route that leads straight to Targoviste. Meanwhile, the Ottoman fleet of some 175 ships is transporting more troops from the Black Sea and plans to sail up the Danube to support the crossing at Nicopolis. Vlad knows that without Hungarian support, he cannot wage an open war against the vast military potential of the Ottoman war machine, and that the only way to confront Mehmed's numerically superior army coming from the south is guerrilla warfare, by focusing on operations that rely on speed, mobility, surprise, and professionalism of the troops. For this extremely difficult and demanding task, the Wallachian voivode can count only on a small portion of his army. From the remaining troops, Vlad forms a mobile expeditionary force and sends them to eastern Wallachia to hold off the Ottoman advance there and relieve the siege of Kielia, a highly valuable strategic city disputed between Moldavia, Wallachia, and Hungary, but also targeted by the Ottomans. Eventually, the Hungarian garrison in Kielia stands firm and the siege falls, with the invaders suffering great losses. Finally, the Ottoman fleet meets up with Mehmed on June 1st. While establishing a bridgehead, Vlad and his cavalrymen ferociously contest the landing. But despite inflicting heavy losses on the invading troops, by June 3rd, the Ottoman vanguard manages to cross the river, and Vlad retreats inland to avoid losses. The Ottomans complete the crossing by the end of June 4th, the next day. The Sultan then divides his forces. Most of the core of the army under Mehmed's personal command marches towards Targoviste, together with Rumelian Sipahis, commanded by Mahmud Pasha. On Mehmed's far right is the second part of his army, the Akinji cavalry, who guard his flank. Due to the unusually hot summer, Mehmed decides to go through the thick Wallachia forest. Ottoman troops welcome the escape from the scorching heat, but in the shade of the Wallachia forest lay hidden contingents of Wallachian troops. Multiple ambushes and night attacks are launched against the long Ottoman line of march. Aware of how dangerous these night attacks are, Mehmed slows down the march in order to keep the troops more compact and starts stopping the march earlier in the day so that camp defenses can be erected before dark. With his night attacks, Vlad successfully slowed down the Ottoman advance as he plays for time while waiting for his expeditionary force to return from eastern Wallachia. Meanwhile, on the Ottoman right flank, the Akinjis run into deserted settlements. The population and livestock are evacuated north, as Vlad aims to deprive the invaders of any means of supplies, leaving nothing behind. Back west, the main Ottoman army runs into logistical problems of their own, as Mehmed's chosen route towards Targoviste proves difficult, not least because of the thick forest and poor road, but also because of vast marshy areas and insufficient vegetation for animal consumption, not to mention the increased risk of diseases in the torrid summer heat. But finally, after about 2 weeks of marching, Mehmed halts his army and orders the camp to be set up on the banks of the Ialomița River, south of Targoviste. At last, Ottoman troops can enjoy an endless supply of fresh water. To raise morale, the Sultan orders musicians to play invigorating tunes. All seems to be under control, and much-needed sleep could not have come at a better time for Mehmed's troops. But the serenity will not last. Organization of the Ottoman camp in many ways mimics their formation on the battlefield, a fact that Vlad is keenly aware of. Sipahi cavalry of the port is in the center, Janissaries in the front center, Anatolian Sipahi cavalry on the left, Rumelian Sipahi cavalry on the right, and the Azab irregulars on the flanks in front of the cavalry. The camp's defenses consist of earthworks, palisades, chains, and lookout posts, with the center being most fortified and additionally protected by artillery pieces due to Mehmed's presence there. Behind the tents are horses and pack animals. Lurking with his cavalrymen, Vlad finally makes contact with his expeditionary force that returned from eastern Wallachia. He relays the plan to his captain, possibly a boyar named Galesh, ordering him to flank to the Ottoman rear from the east, while Vlad plans to flank the camp from the west. And they would meet in the center to focus their attack on the Ottoman headquarters and the Sultan himself. Having issued orders for a synchronized attack from both flanks, Vlad orders his cavalrymen forward. The task of outflanking is a delicate one because of the tremendous dimensions of the camp. It would take the Wallachian cavalrymen around 4 hours to complete the maneuver. Vlad rounds the Ottoman left undetected. But the troops in the tents on the Ottoman far left are soon alerted, possibly because a small part of Vlad's left flank hooked the Anatolian Sipahi camp. It is now only a matter of time before the rest of the camp is alerted to the attack, and Vlad knows that his actions now must be executed faster. If he hurries, there is still a chance to retain the element of surprise, as it will take some time before news of the attack reaches the rest of the Anatolian Sipahis and the center of the camp. The Wallachian voivode urges his men forward. About 1 hour later, the Wallachian cavalry breaks through the camp defenses of the Ottoman center. Vlad Tepes spearheads the attack towards the tents of the Ottoman generals and the gold-red tent of Mehmed II. The surprise attack creates panic, catching the Ottomans in the center off guard and on foot. Wallachian cavalrymen hack their way through the Sipahis of the port and start cutting the ropes that anchor leather tent canvases, temporarily trapping many troops underneath, while in the darkness some of the Ottoman troops attack each other in the confusion. Vlad and his men close in on the center of the Ottoman camp and smash into the Janissaries that manage to regroup and form a line to protect the Sultan thanks to their high professionalism. Momentum of the Wallachian cavalry charge drives a deep wedge in their formation, getting ever closer to the Sultan's tent. But the Janissaries stand fast and manage to contain the push of Vlad's charge. Amidst the fighting, the Wallachian voivode sees that to his right, his expeditionary force that was supposed to attack from the east is nowhere to be seen. It is not clear why Vlad's captain did not arrive with the expeditionary force, and contemporary accounts give us conflicting evidence. It is possible that this Wallachian commander wasn't proficient enough to execute the difficult flanking maneuver, and that he clashed with elements of the Ottoman right flank too early. Another possibility is that the two Wallachian contingents couldn't effectively coordinate the attack at night while being tens of kilometers away from each other. It is also possible that the Wallachian commander betrayed Vlad. Whatever the case may be, the fact is, Vlad attacked the Ottoman camp alone with his horsemen, and soon the gruesome hand-to-hand combat begins to tilt in favor of the more numerous Ottomans. Outnumbered and bleeding from a head wound, Vlad and his cavalrymen begin fighting their way out of the Ottoman camp. Vlad's only option is to retreat southeast, because the news of the attack still hasn't reached the Rumelian Sipahis on the Ottoman right flank. Before sunrise, about 5,000 Wallachian and 15,000 Ottoman troops lay dead on the battlefield. As the Ottoman march continues, they are met with a horrific sight. A field of dead Ottoman soldiers in their thousands, impaled and rotting in the summer sun. Mehmed takes stock of the situation and decides to bypass Targoviste. He realizes that Matthias will not be coming to Vlad's aid, and that he won't be able to force an open battle against the Wallachian voivode. So to continue towards Targoviste would only expose his army to yet more ambushes and night attacks from the elusive Vlad Tepes. The Sultan is aware that the Wallachian voivode can keep outmaneuvering the less mobile Ottoman army and slowly bleed them dry using guerrilla tactics. The Sultan's assumptions prove true as Vlad delivers yet another major night attack near Buzău, inflicting yet more losses to the invading army. Mehmed decides to march towards Brăila, where his fleet awaits. The Sultan also correctly predicts that he can weaken Vlad's political position by leaving behind Radu to take the throne with the support of the Akinji cavalry. Radu indeed quickly wins the support of the greater boyars by giving them many privileges, and he soon takes control of voivodal residences in Bucharest and Targoviste, as well as voivodal lands, subjects and trade routes in the south of the country. This secures fiscal stability for Radu, enabling him to establish his rule by August 1462. In the meantime, Vlad retreats into northern Wallachia. Without the support of the greater boyars, it is unclear what is the reach of his authority at this point. However, he still holds two important trade routes, the Red Turret Pass and the Bran Pass, both strong defensive positions. The voivode knows that the Akinji will finish their pillaging and retreat back to Bulgaria before winter, which will leave Radu exposed, and he intends to ask for support from King Matthias to depose Radu. In November, Vlad and Matthias meet at Brasov, but the Hungarian king refuses to aid Vlad, knowing that if he supported an attack against Radu, the Ottomans will perceive this as a declaration of war. Enraged, Vlad decides to attack Radu without Hungarian help. In late November of 1462, Vlad heads through the Bran Pass. At the Oratia fortress, he is ambushed by Jan Giskra, a Bohemian mercenary commander, now in the service of Matthias. The king orders Vlad's arrest in order to prevent the outbreak of a new war. With Vlad imprisoned, his brother Radu's rule is secured, and Wallachia is now firmly in the Ottoman grip. If you stayed around this far, thank you for watching. We would also like to thank the authors of Corpus Draculianum for providing us with a wealth of information that was used in our Battle of Targoviste miniseries. We highly recommend it. As always, we'll see you in the next one.